My son's eulogy for his father was so moving, the entire church wept. I only realized a week later that he was also reading the obituary for my future. The words he spoke about Arthur, his integrity, his strength, his unwavering love, were a beautiful, poisonous veil. I was shrouded in it, blinded by a grief so profound it felt like a physical ailment. My world had shrunk to the four walls of my empty house and the crushing weight of memory. Michael and his wife, VA Chapter 1, The Eulogy and the Fog. My son's eulogy for his father was so moving, the entire church wept. I only realized a week later that he was also reading the obituary for my future. I sat in the front pew, the scent of lilies stifling, my black gloves damp with tears I couldn't seem to stop. My husband, Arthur, lay in a box 10 feet away, and my son stood at the pulpit telling stories about him that made strangers sob and family clasp their hands to their chests. Michael's voice cracked at all the right moments. My father was the man who taught me everything. Integrity. Strength. Loyalty. He pressed a fist to his chest. He was my hero. A ripple of emotion swept the room. Even Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, dabbed delicately at her eyes with a tissue. I was proud of him then in that moment. Proud of the son we raised, proud that Arthur's legacy was so beautifully spoken. Proud, even as the grief in my chest hollowed me out. But pride can be a liar. Afterward, in the church hall, people came to me with platitudes and embraces. So sorry for your loss. He was a good man. You'll be okay, Nora, you're strong. I smiled, nodded, let their words wash over me like waves over stone. I was not strong. Not then. It was Michael who steered me through the blur of condolences, one hand on my elbow, gentle, guiding. Mom, don't overexert yourself. Vanessa and I will take care of everything. Dad wouldn't want you overwhelmed. Vanessa's voice was honeyed, her touch light. You've carried this family for decades, Nora. Let us carry you now. I believed them. I wanted to believe them. I was so tired, so numb, that when Michael slid a neat stack of papers across my kitchen table 3 nights later, I barely questioned it. Just probate stuff, he explained softly. Legalities. Sign here, here, and here. We'll handle the rest. The pages blurred through my tears. My hand trembled as I scrawled my name over and over, Arthur's absence like a weight pressing my chest flat. Vanessa rubbed my shoulder. There. That wasn't so bad. They left with the papers, their arms full of my future, and I returned to bed where Arthur's side was cold, the pillow dent still fresh. Grief is a fog, and I was lost in it. But fog is also cover. And predators love cover. Chapter 2, The Gentle Trap. The days blurred together. Morning coffee that tasted of ashes. Silence in the halls that once rang with Arthur's laugh. Michael and Vanessa were constant presences. Vanessa brought casseroles and fussed over me. Michael opened mail, answered phone calls, took care of things. At first, I was grateful. Then I began to notice. My bank statements no longer arrived. When I asked, Michael smiled. We've gone paperless, Mom. Easier for everyone. The checkbook in the drawer bore his handwriting. Not mine. And then came the conversation about the house. Mom, this place is too big for you, Michael said one afternoon, sliding a glossy brochure across the table. A sleek, modern condo stared up at me, sterile as a hospital room. I pushed it back. This is my home. Your father's home. He leaned forward, eyes shining with practiced sympathy. Think of it as a fresh start. Less upkeep, fewer memories weighing you down. Vanessa's hand curled around mine. We've already spoken to a realtor. Just to explore options. Nothing is final. But I saw the truth in her smile. They weren't exploring. They were deciding. For me. That night, I walked the halls of my home, touching the door frames, the photographs, the worn banister Arthur had polished himself. This house wasn't just walls and wood. It was 40 years of us. And they wanted to sell it like a used car. The next morning, I went to the bank myself. The teller gave me a strained smile. I'm sorry, Mrs. Sterling. This account has been closed. Closed. My savings. Gone. Panic flooded me. My hands shook as I stumbled outside, the sun too bright, the air too thin. That's when it hit me. The papers. The ones I signed through a veil of tears. I hadn't signed probate documents. I had signed my life away. Chapter 3. At the graveside. The cemetery was quiet that Tuesday, the kind of quiet that presses against your ribs. Damp earth, slick marble, rows of names chiseled into stone. I came alone, clutching the stems of white roses. Arthur's name gleamed new, too fresh to belong among the weathered markers around it. My knees ached as I knelt, the smell of wet grass rising sharp. "I don't know what to do, Arthur," I whispered. "They've taken everything." I thought they loved me. A voice behind me broke the silence. "Nora." I startled. Frank Webb stood a few feet away, his hat in hand, rain spattering his shoulders. Arthur's oldest friend, his golf partner, his confidant. His eyes were sharp, even at 72, the look of a man who'd spent decades sniffing out lies. He crouched beside me, rough hand on my shoulder. "Tell me." And I did. I poured it all out, the bank accounts, the papers, the house. Michael's careful words, Vanessa's gentle touch. Frank's expression hardened. "They conned you." "I've seen this before." I shook my head, tears burning. "He's my son, Frank." He sighed. "Son or not, the smell of fraud is the same. Tell me this. Did Arthur change his insurance recently?" I hesitated. "Yes." He doubled it. Said he wanted me secure, in case. My throat closed. Frank's jaw tightened. "I'll check something." 3 days later, he came back to my kitchen with a folder. He tossed it on the table. "The beneficiary on Arthur's policy was changed," he said flatly. "Not you. A trust. Controlled by Michael." My blood turned cold. "And the police report, the Slick Roads claim?" "Only one witness." He paused. "Vanessa's brother." The room tilted. The air thinned. "Arthur's death. The crash. It wasn't chance. It was orchestrated." Chapter 4. The Widow's Counterlay. Frank leaned back in his chair, eyes like flint. "Here's what you do. You play the grieving widow. Helpless. Confused. Let them think you're harmless. Meanwhile, we fight." I swallowed hard. "Fight how?" He laid out the plan. Reopen the accident investigation. He'd bring evidence, weather reports proving clear skies, a mechanic's assessment of tampered brakes. Attack the power of attorney. "Undue influence," Frank said. "You were manipulated in a state of grief. We'll revoke it." Quietly. For weeks, I became the widow they expected. Forgetful. Agreeable. I nodded as Michael explained financial stress, smiled weakly at Vanessa's casseroles. Behind the mask, letters went out. Notarized, stamped, delivered to every bank and brokerage. The accounts froze. The life insurance payout stalled. The first crack came when Michael stormed into my living room, his tie askew, his voice low and dangerous. "Mom, what did you do?" I blinked up at him, knitting needles in hand, face arranged into confusion. "Do? I don't understand." "The bank says your accounts are locked. The insurer won't release the funds." His fists clenched. "Did you talk to someone?" I widened my eyes, let my lip tremble. "Maybe Frank. Arthur's friend. He's been helping me." Michael's face twisted. "That meddling old." Vanessa stepped in quickly, laying a hand on his arm. "Michael, please. She's grieving. She doesn't know what she's saying." Her smile turned to me, all teeth. "Don't worry, Nora. We'll sort this out." But I saw it then, the fear flickering beneath her eyes. And I knew the game had shifted. Chapter 5. Blackmail in Blood. It was Michael alone, one night, pounding on my door. His face pale, his eyes ringed with shadows. "Mom, we need to talk." He sat across from me at the kitchen table, pulling a manila envelope from his jacket. He pushed it toward me. I hesitated, then opened it. Photographs spilled out. My husband, my Arthur, stepping out of a motel room with a woman. Younger. Dark-haired. Smiling. My chest caved in. "No." Michael leaned in, voice low. "Dad was having an affair. He was going to leave you. That's why he changed the beneficiary." I shook my head violently. "No. He wouldn't. I found out," Michael cut in. His voice hardened. I confronted him. Things escalated. The crash wasn't an accident, but it wasn't murder either. It was me protecting you." The words hung in the air like poison. He leaned closer. "If you keep pushing this, these photos will come out. The world will see Dad for what he was. And they'll ask what you had to gain by his death." Tears burned my eyes. My hands trembled. "Drop this, Mom," he whispered. "For Dad's memory. For yourself." When he left, the house felt colder than ever. I pressed the photos to my chest, sobbing, the betrayal cutting deeper than knives. For the first time, I wondered if I should stop. If protecting Arthur's name was worth losing everything else. Chapter 6. The Woman in the Photos. Frank's eyes narrowed as he spread the photos on the table. "Affair? Bullshit. Arthur adored you. He wouldn't stray." My voice cracked. "But the pictures." He pointed. "This woman. I know her. She's not a mistress. She's a private investigator." The words hit me like a jolt. Frank was relentless. He tracked her down. Her name was Lydia Cross. Her office? A cheap motel off Route 19. The very place in the photos. We met her together. She confirmed everything. "Yes, Arthur hired me," she said, pulling files from a cabinet. "He'd found old family documents about mineral rights under your property. A forgotten coal mine, potentially worth millions. He wanted it verified, quietly. Said it was a surprise for your anniversary." I clutched the folder, my heart aching. My Arthur. Not unfaithful. Not betraying me. Planning a gift. A future. Michael must have snooped. He saw the emails, the documents, and spun his web of lies. Frank's jaw tightened. They killed him for this. Insurance, property, minerals. The works. The betrayal deepened, layers unfolding like a nightmare. But now we had proof. And I wanted blood. Chapter 7. Justice and Reflection. The police moved fast once Frank delivered the evidence. Tampered brakes. Falsified witness statements. Emails tying Michael to the trust and the insurance change. The arrests were quiet but devastating. My neighbors watched as Michael and Vanessa were led from their sleek SUV in handcuffs, faces pale, lips pressed tight. I didn't attend the arraignment. I didn't need to. I'd already buried my husband. I didn't need to bury my son too. But justice was swift. The life insurance reverted to me. The accounts reopened in my name. The mineral rights were confirmed. I stood on the porch of my home, the autumn wind sharp, leaves skittering across the yard. My house. My land. My life. They say grief changes you. But it was betrayal that forged me. I had been soft, trusting, blind with love. And they had seen that as weakness. But I learned. Trust is a precious currency, and not everyone deserves it. To anyone who feels vulnerable, know this. Your softness is not a flaw. Your awareness of it is your armor. Protect your heart. Fortify your mind. I was once just Nora Sterling, wife, mother, teacher. Now I am the woman who survived her son's betrayal. And I will never be fooled again. Nessa moved into that emptiness with the quiet efficiency of surgeons. They were there to help, to manage the complexities a 70-year-old retired schoolteacher couldn't possibly navigate. "Mom, you just need to rest," Michael would say, his voice a soothing balm as he placed a cup of tea in my hands. "Let us handle the paperwork." It's what Dad would have wanted. The paperwork. It was always paperwork. A sheaf of documents would appear, and Vanessa's pen, sleek and cold, would be pressed into my palm. "Just sign here, Nora darling," she'd murmur, her finger pointing to a flagged tab. "It's for the probate court." And here. "For the life insurance logistics." And here. "Just a formality to make you Michael's emergency contact." My signature, once a firm, practiced script on grade reports, had become a shaky, grief-stricken scrawl. I signed away the noise, trusting the children I had raised to be my compass in the storm. The first crack in the facade appeared 3 months later. A letter from my investment firm, addressed to me, but with a sticky note in Michael's handwriting, handling this, Mom. Don't worry. But I did worry. Arthur had always handled our finances, but he'd made me sit with him, every quarter, going over the statements. This is your security, Nora. You must always understand it. I called the firm. The polite, clipped voice on the phone told me that according to the power of attorney documents on file, All communications were to be directed to my son, Michael Sterling. The accounts, she confirmed, had been liquidated last month. The floor fell away. Power of attorney. I never signed that. Did I? A cold dread, sharper than any grief, began to pump through my veins. I went to the bank, to the safe deposit box Arthur and I had shared. It was empty. The deed to our house was gone. I drove home, my hands trembling on the wheel, to find a glossy, full-color brochure on the kitchen table. It featured a sterile-looking condo with beige carpets. We found it. Vanessa chirped, coming in behind me. It's perfect for you, Nora. No stairs, a community garden. It's time to downsize. This house is just a museum of ghosts now. Michael stood behind her, his face a mask of benevolent concern. Mom, you're not thinking clearly. The memory's here. It's a wait. We've already spoken to a realtor. The market is hot. We can have this place listed by Friday. This is my home, I whispered, the words feeling like shards of glass in my throat. I let my voice crack, let the tears well up. I performed the fragility they expected of me. Think of it as a new chapter, Vanessa said, patting my arm. Less for you to worry about. We've already handled the insurance payout from the trust. It's all very complicated. The trust. The words landed like a physical blow. I had to get out. I mumbled something about needing air, about visiting Arthur. I drove to the cemetery, the world outside the car window a blur of betrayal. I fell to my knees on the fresh turf, the sobs that racked my body now real. Oh, Arthur, I cried into the uncaring earth. What have they done? What have I let them do? A shadow fell over me. Nora. I looked up, wiping my tears with a shaking hand. It was Franklin Webb, Frank, Arthur's oldest friend. A bear of a man with a gruff voice and eyes that had seen every kind of lie in his 40 years as an insurance fraud investigator. Frank, I choked out. He didn't offer platitudes. He just knelt beside me, his presence a solid anchor. Talk to me, Nora. And it all spilled out. The signed papers, the liquidated accounts, the missing deed, the condo, the trust. The trusting, nurturing heart I had worn my entire life was finally, irrevocably, breaking. Frank's face, usually so expressive, went dangerously still. Power of attorney? They moved fast. He helped me to my feet, his grip firm. Nora, this stinks. It reeks. Arthur, his policy. He increased it significantly last year. Double indemnity for accidental death. My blood ran cold. A car accident, I whispered. Exactly, Frank said, his voice a low growl. Let me make a few calls. Don't say a word to them. You play the part, Nora. You play the confused, grieving widow. Can you do that? I looked from his determined face to my husband's headstone. A fierce, unfamiliar strength ignited within me. Yes, I said, my voice steady for the first time in months. I can. The next week was a masterclass in duplicity. I was Nora the Fragile, nodding vacantly as Michael talked about staging the house, agreeing with Vanessa's suggestions about which heirlooms to sell. But behind my watery smile, a steel trap was closing. Frank was my general. He called me from a blocked number each night, his updates terse and devastating. The beneficiary was changed, Nora. 3 months ago. To a family trust. Michael's trust. The police report cited slick roads. The only eyewitness was Vanessa's brother. I had a friend run a weather report for that night. No precipitation for 48 hours prior. The road was dry. The final, horrifying piece came on a Thursday. Nora, Frank's voice was grim over the phone. I had a look at the car. What was left of it? The brake lines, they were tampered with. This wasn't an accident. It was murder. The world didn't tilt, it shattered. My son. My own son. The betrayal was so profound it was almost beautiful in its monstrosity. He hadn't just stolen my money, he had killed my husband, his father, for it. The counterattack began. Frank, using his old contacts, formally reopened the investigation with the insurance company, presenting the weather data and the mechanics report on the brakes. The multi-million-dollar payout was frozen immediately. Simultaneously, I struck. Frank had discovered a legal loophole. A power of attorney could be revoked unilaterally by the principal, provided it was done in writing and delivered to all relevant institutions. I went to a notary, a fierce old woman who reminded me of myself, and signed the revocation. We sent it by certified mail to the bank, the investment firm, the title company. I was taking back control of my life, one signature at a time. The effect was instantaneous and volcanic. Michael's carefully constructed house of cards trembled. The sale of the house was halted. The money was locked. And then, the police arrived, not for a follow-up, but with a warrant for the financial records. Michael and Vanessa were named persons of interest in a murder investigation. The mask of the concerned son finally slipped. He came to the house alone, his face a thundercloud of panic and rage. He didn't bother with pleasantries. "You need to call off Frank," he snarled, his voice stripped of all its false warmth. "You need to tell the police you're confused, that you signed everything willingly." I was grieving, I said, my voice calm. "You took advantage. You have no idea what you're messing with, Mom." He spat the word "Mom" like a curse. Then his expression shifted, becoming cunning, conspiratorial. He leaned forward. "You think Dad was a saint? You think he was this perfect man?" He pulled an envelope from his jacket and tossed it onto the coffee table. Photographs spilled out. Arthur, my Arthur, leaving a cheap motel. And with him, a blonde woman half his age. Laughing. "He was having an affair," Michael said, his voice dripping with a twisted, triumphant pity. "For over a year. He was going to leave you. He was going to take everything and leave you with nothing." I stared at the photos, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was a second, more intimate murder. "I found out," Michael continued, his story unfolding like a poisonous flower. "I confronted him. We argued, that night, in the garage. About the insurance, about the money, about her. It was an accident, Mom. He backed the car out too fast, he was upset, the brakes, it was his own fault." He was reframing the narrative, casting himself as my vengeful protector. "But if this goes to court," he hissed, his eyes locking with mine, "I'll have to show these. I'll have to tell them everything. I'll have to prove your motive." A betrayed wife, a woman scorned, who had just found out her husband of 50 years was leaving her for a younger woman. Who had the most to gain from his death? "They'll look at you, Mom. They'll arrest you." The audacity of it was breathtaking. He was blackmailing me with my husband's fabricated infidelity to cover up his own murder. I felt the ground give way again. Was it possible? Could Arthur have? I must have looked as shattered as I felt, because a smug, victorious gleam lit in Michael's eyes. He thought he had won. He left me there, drowning in this new, horrifying doubt. When Frank came over, I was still holding one of the photos, my tears falling on the image of my husband's face. I showed him. Frank's reaction was not what I expected. He squinted at the photo, then pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. "Arthur? Never. Not in a million years. He adored you, Nora." It was sickening. He zoomed in on the woman's face. "And I've seen this woman before." "What?" "Her name is Chloe Miller. Arthur hired her." He looked at me, his eyes blazing with renewed purpose. "She's a private investigator." The truth, when it finally came, was more astonishing than any fiction. Frank dug deeper. Arthur, it turned out, had a secret passion project. A lifelong history buff, he'd been researching old land surveys and family documents. He'd become convinced that our property, and the entire ridge it sat on, was underlain by a forgotten anthracite coal seam. The mineral rights, severed decades ago, had never been properly reassigned. He believed they were worth millions. He had hired Chloe Miller to discreetly verify his findings and track down the legal heirs. He wanted to secure the rights, to present me with the deed on our 50th anniversary. The motel was her office, chosen for its anonymity. The secret meetings were to protect the surprise. Michael, who had been secretly monitoring his father's email, had discovered the truth. He and Vanessa saw not a romantic gesture, but the ultimate payday. The life insurance, the property, the mineral rights, it was a trifecta of wealth. They had orchestrated it all. The tampered brakes, the false witness, the forged beneficiary change. The affair was a story they had concocted, a shield to use if they were ever discovered. We presented this evidence to the police. The case against Michael and Vanessa collapsed into a confession. They were arrested for murder, fraud, and conspiracy. The trial was swift. I sat in the front row every day, my gaze steady, as my son was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The life insurance reverted to me. The house is still mine. And Frank was right. The mineral rights were confirmed. The land I walk on every day is worth more than I could ever have imagined. They say grief changes you. But it was the betrayal that forged me. I learned that trust is a precious currency, and not everyone is worthy of it. The soft, nurturing heart of Nora Sterling, the schoolteacher, is still there. But it is now encased in steel, tempered by fire. I look out at the quiet, wooded land from my porch, Frank's steady presence in the chair beside me. To anyone out there feeling vulnerable, remember, your softness is not a weakness, but your awareness of it is your greatest strength. Protect your heart, but fortify your mind. I had to learn that lesson in the crucible of my own family's greed. And I survived.